story of your enslavement, how it came to be, and how you can finally be free. Like all animals, human beings want to dominate and exploit the resources around them. At first, we mostly hunted and fished and ate off the land, but then something magical and terrible happened to our minds. We became, alone among the animals, afraid of death and of future loss. And this was the start of a great tragedy and an even greater possibility. You see, when we become afraid of death, of injury and imprisonment, we become controllable and so valuable in a way that no other resource could ever be. The greatest resource for any human being to control is not natural resources or tools or animals or land, but other human beings. You can frighten an animal because animals are afraid of pain in the moment, but you cannot frighten an animal with a loss of liberty, with torture or imprisonment in the future, because animals have very little sense of tomorrow. You cannot threaten a cow with torture or a sheep with death. You cannot swing a sword at a tree and scream at it to produce more fruit, or hold a burning torch to a field and demand more wheat. You cannot get more eggs by threatening a hen, but you can get a man to give you his eggs by threatening him. This human farming has been the most profitable and destructive occupation throughout history, and it is now reaching its destructive climax. Human society cannot be rationally understood until it is seen for what it is: a series of farms where human farmers own human livestock. Some people get confused because governments provide healthcare and water and education and roads, and thus imagine that there is some benevolence at work. Nothing could be further from the reality. Farmers provide healthcare and irrigation and training to their livestock. Some people get confused because we are allowed certain liberties and thus imagine that our governments protect our freedoms. But farmers plant their crops a certain distance apart to increase their yields, and will allow certain animals larger stalls or fields if it means they will produce more meat and milk. In your country, your tax farm, your farmer grants you certain freedoms, not because he cares about your liberties, but because he wants to increase his profits. Are you beginning to see the nature of the cage you were born into? There have been 4 major phases of human farming. The first phase in ancient Egypt was direct and brutal human compulsion. Human bodies were controlled, but the creative productivity of the human mind remained beyond the reach of the whip and the brand and the shackles. Slaves remained woefully underproductive and required enormous resources to control. The second phase was the Roman model, wherein slaves were granted some capacity for freedom, ingenuity, and creativity, which raised their productivity. This increased the wealth of Rome, and thus the tax income of the Roman government, and with this additional wealth, Rome became an empire, destroying the economic freedoms that fed its power, and collapsed. I'm sure that this does not seem entirely unfamiliar. After the collapse of Rome, the feudal model introduced the concept of livestock ownership and taxation. Instead of being directly owned, peasants farmed land that they could retain as long as they paid off the local warlords. This model eventually broke down due to the continual subdivision of productive land and was destroyed during the enclosure movement when land was consolidated and hundreds of thousands of peasants were kicked off their ancestral lands because new farming techniques made larger farms more productive with fewer people. The increased productivity of the later Middle Ages created the excess food required for the expansion of towns and cities, which in turn gave rise to the modern democratic model of human ownership. As displaced peasants flooded into the cities, a huge stock of cheap human capital became available to the rising industrialists. And the ruling class of human farmers quickly realized that they could make more money by letting their livestock choose their own occupations. Under the democratic model, direct slave ownership has been replaced by the mafia model. The mafia rarely owns businesses directly, but rather sends thugs around once a month to steal from the business owners. You are now allowed to choose your own occupation, which raises your productivity, and thus the taxes you can pay to your masters.
Value this time in your life, kids, because this is the time in your life when you still have your choices. And it goes by so fast. When you're a teenager, you think you can do anything, and you do. Your 20s are a blur. 30s, you raise your family, you make a little money, and you think to yourself, what happened to my 20s? 40s, you grow a little pot belly, you grow another chin. The music starts to get too loud. One of your old girlfriends from high school becomes a grandmother. 50s, you have a minor surgery. You'll call it a procedure, but it's a surgery. 60s, you'll have a major surgery. The music is still loud, but it doesn't matter because you can't hear it anyway. 70s, you and the wife retire to Fort Lauderdale. Start eating dinner at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You have lunch around 10, breakfast the night before. Spend most of your time wandering around malls looking for the ultimate soft yogurt and muttering, how come the kids don't call? How come the kids don't call? The 80s, you'll have a major stroke. You end up battling with some Jamaican nurse who your wife can't stand, but who you call mama. Any questions?
Your few freedoms are preserved because they are profitable to your owners. The great challenge of the democratic model is that increases in wealth and freedom threaten the farmers. The ruling classes initially profit from a relatively free market in capital and labor, but as their livestock become more used to their freedoms and growing wealth, they begin to question why they need rulers at all. Well, nobody ever said that human farming was easy. Keeping the taxed livestock securely in the compounds of the ruling classes is a three-phase process. The first is to indoctrinate the young through government, quote, education. As the wealth of democratic countries grew, government schools were universally inflicted in order to control the thoughts and souls of the livestock. The second phase is to turn citizens against each other through the creation of dependent livestock. It is very difficult to rule human beings directly through force, and where it can be achieved, it remains cripplingly underproductive, as can be seen in North Korea. Human beings do not breed well or produce efficiently in direct captivity. But if human beings believe that they are free, then they will produce much more for their farmers. The best way to maintain this illusion of freedom is to put some of the livestock on the payroll of the farmer. Those cows that become dependent on the existing hierarchy will then attack any other cows who point out the violence, hypocrisy, and immorality of human ownership.
Officers positioned Grant face first on the floor with one officer near his head, a second near his back, and a third officer standing nearby. There appeared to be a brief struggle. Then, a 2-year veteran BART officer stands, draws his weapon, and fires.
Freedom is slavery, and slavery is freedom. If you can get the cows to attack each other whenever anybody brings up the reality of their situation, then you don't have to spend nearly as much controlling them directly. Those cows who become dependent upon the stolen largesse of the farmer will violently oppose any questioning of the virtue of human ownership, and the intellectual and artistic classes, always and forever dependent upon the farmers, will say to anyone who demands freedom from ownership, "You will harm your fellow cows." The livestock are thus kept enclosed by shifting the moral responsibility for the destructiveness of the violent system to those who demand real freedom. The third phase is to invent continual external threats so that the frightened livestock cling to the protection of the farmers. This system of human farming is now nearing its end. The terrible tragedies of modern Western economic systems has occurred not in spite of, but because of past economic freedoms. The massive increases in Western wealth throughout the 19th century resulted from economic freedoms. And it was this very increase in wealth that fed the size and power of the state. Whenever the livestock become exponentially more productive, you get a corresponding increase in the number of farmers and their dependents. The growth of the state is always proportional to the preceding economic freedoms. Economic freedoms create wealth, and the wealth attracts more thieves and political parasites, whose greed then destroys the economic freedoms. In other words, freedom metastasizes the cancer of the state. The government that starts off the smallest will always end up the largest. This is why there can be no viable and sustainable alternative to a truly free and peaceful society. A society without political rulers, without human ownership, without the violence of taxation and statism. To be truly free is both very easy and very hard. We avoid the horror of our enslavement because it is so painful to see it directly. We dance around the endless violence of our dying system because we fear the attacks of our fellow livestock. But we can only be kept in the cages we refuse to see. Wake up. To see the farm is to leave it.
Instead of this euphemism called the Old World Order or even authority or kingship, who could tell me what this really is? Slavery. Let's stop euphemizing and call things what they really are. This is called slavery. Okay? Backed by violence, and it's not anything else, never was anything else, isn't anything else today, and is never going to be anything else. It's called slavery. If you're being honest with yourself, which most people aren't. So, the New World Order is based on the concept of government. Okay? Government comes from the Latin verb gubernare, sometimes rendered in more modern or non-classical Latin as governare. Okay? Gubernare means to control. And then the second part of the word ment comes from the Latin noun mens mentis, which means mind. When you put them together, the word government literally means to control the mind. It is mind control. To believe in it, someone has to be under mind control, because they have to believe in the erroneous concept of authority backed by violence. Okay? That's what government is now, always has been, and always will be, whether anybody understands that or not. Okay? Now, this is what the New World Order is based upon. We saw what the Old World Order was. It was ruled by one, a priest or a king. Okay? The New World Order is you have a government on top of the structure. So now we're doing it's the same exact structure ruled by violence and built on the false claim of authority over other people. Okay? And all you're doing is you're divesting that so-called authority, that power, okay, granted to the king, and you're just divesting it into a few people in the institution known as government. So this is authority vested in a group. The system is based entirely in violence and built upon the erroneous and dogmatic belief or the religion that a certain group of people are masters who possess the moral right to issue commands, while all other beings are subjects who have the moral obligation to obey the commands of the master. Once again, if you think there's any difference between this and the old world order, these are called opposames, as David Icke likes to call them. They're not opposites. They're the exact same thing, euphemized with a different word. It's all language. It's all word games, word magic. Okay? Ultimately, it's the exact same core thing, and that's called slavery. Nothing has changed. The old world order has just morphed into the new world order because people stopped believing overtly enough in the religious institutions and in the institution of kingship. That's it. So now the people in control of these institutions just said, well, let's just morph it and say, we're going to divest it into the hands of a few. Let's stop euphemizing these things and calling them what they are. Okay? It's not kingship. It's called slavery ruled by one. It's not government. It's called slavery ruled by few. If you're being honest with yourself. There's that caveat. If you're being honest with yourself. Most people aren't being honest with themselves. They're lying to themselves because they hate themselves. Because they're dealing with unresolved psychological dynamics, okay, that bring up self-loathing and the refusal to accept personal responsibility, and no one wants to hear that spoken. Well, I'm going to speak it. I'm going to speak it. All right? Let's look at certain groups of people. Thank you. I have a half an hour left. I'll try to speed through this. All right? Rigid skeptics, like this guy who's burning in hell right now, if there is a hell, guaranteed he's there. You know who that is? That's Philip Klass. Okay? The biggest so-called ufology debunker of all time, who was, now it has finally come out, was on the payroll of the CIA and was working for the CIA the entire time he was doing all this debunking work. Okay? The biggest clown possibly in the history of the world, this punk. Okay? All right? Because he'll say he's a skeptic, but he's nothing of the kind. Nothing of the kind, because if his daddy tells him it's true, well, then I believe daddy. I believe the CIA, because that's my daddy. This is how these nested psychological abandonment issues work. I can't look into the truth for myself, no matter how much evidence. Evidence be damned. Evidence be damned. Daddy told me it's this way. Okay? So I'm skeptical about everything. Unless, of course, the government or government-funded scientists say it's true. Then I'm a true believer. I'm a true believer because mommy and daddy told me it's true. Right. How about religionists in general, the followers of religion? The priest class we already talked about. Okay? The followers of religion I call the children of the gods, or Jay had a great term for it, the children of hierarchy. These are the people who love hierarchy. They love prostrating themselves before their gods, as if the God of creation would ever demand that of us. Because he's that vain. He, she, it is that vain. That force is that vain. No, the gods were that vain and cruel and sadistic. The God of creation is nothing like that. Okay? So, you know, all religion is about is surrender. It's about surrender. It's not about actually getting to the truth. It's about accepting what we tell you. Okay? So, we believe what we're told to believe. That is so much easier than developing critical thinking skills. That's what religion is. I'm just going to cut right to the core of what's going on psychologically with people like this. And I don't care who it offends. Okay? You listening out there, I don't care if you're offended by it. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what's true. Okay? Believers in government, or what I call the supporters of slavery. Look, in all honesty, we even have to drop this term statist. We got to start calling these people what they are. They're supporters of slavery. That's what these people are. Okay? And I don't care what brand they come in. Left, right, center, or otherwise. Okay? The Democrat, the liberal, the political leftist. He wants government, she wants government to be our caretaker from cradle to grave. Thinks that government should act as provider and nurturer like an archetypal mother. This is because there's abandonment issues in the motherly sense that are going on in most people like that. And if you go into people who are political leftist, liberal, Democrat types, okay, and yeah, I am generalizing, okay, you will find people with mommy issues. Okay? You will find people with mommy issues because what they want the government to be is the caretaker that's absent. So they want it to be mommy. I want mommy. And now government's going to be mommy. Okay? Now let's look at the opposite side, the opposame. Okay? As David Icke calls it, the Republican, the conservative, the political right-winger, okay? They want government to be our protector. We want a strong government. It's got to be our protector. Police the world and keep us safe, right? From cradle to grave, it's going to keep us safe, like an archetypal father figure, like the powerful, protective father figure. Well, just like the Democrats and the political leftists have mommy issues, all the people on the right side, who this is what they think government should exist to do, have daddy issues. They want government to be daddy. Okay? That's the underlying psychological issues that these people have and don't even know they have. They don't even know they have these issues. All right? It's mommy and daddy didn't pay enough attention to me. So I want mommy and daddy present now. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. And look, let's not leave out the minarchists. Okay? Let me just go back one there. The minarchist, the constitutionalist. This is the libertarian. I only want a little bit of government. I want government to beat me 3 days a week instead of 7. Whip me 3 days a week, master, not 7, please. The plantation on the other side of the hill only whips their slaves 3 days a week. Here we get whipped 7 days a week. So I want to go over to that plantation. This is absurdity. It's absurdity. And again, I don't usually speak that strongly out against these types of groups because they're almost there, but they're the people who are most of the way there, but they fear going all the way because they don't want to be labeled an anarchist. Or in other words, a non-supporter of slavery who thinks that slavery should be abolished. God forbid. Gods forbid. Okay? And yeah, I'm getting a little bit emotional because these people are the people who keep slavery going. They're responsible. How much time do I have? 27. Okay. Mainstream media is the next group who are psychological infants, children. They don't want to determine truth for themselves and report it in any kind of a responsible way or any kind of a direct way. All they care about is a paycheck. That's it. I'll get up there and lie to people for a paycheck. Write what you're told, mainstream media. Thanks, corporate news. The elite couldn't control the people without you. It's true. Because these are the people who keep these topics from ever being explored. See, you don't need to eradicate occult knowledge or wisdom. You don't need to. All you have to do is have enough people dissuading people from looking into any of this and call it fringe and cast doubt on it and cast derision on it. The ridicule factor. That's all. And then people go along with the herd like good little sheep and good little slaves. So these people, what they're really saying is, I'm too much of a low-life coward to tell the truth, so I repeat lies for a paycheck. That's all. These people. I'm trying to help you, somebody who is partially well, if not all the way well, to explain you're dealing with psychologically ill people. These are broken individuals that need healing and need to be put back together to remember who we really are. And we're not going to do it unless we deal with these issues. It's not going to be done unless the issues on this tree are dealt with. The New Agers, who I call the hopelessly naive, who want to believe, the aliens from Pleiades are coming here in their giant battle cruisers to rescue us from our own ignorance any day now. Or no real knowledge is going to have to be done. We're going to have to meditate the world into a new way of being. Well, you're not going to have to actually study and read books and take up knowledge into yourself. God forbid. That might involve effort and work. And we can't have that, So we're just going to sit in a lotus position and meditate all day. Okay? And the other things, they have just wildly off notions about how actual dynamics of the laws of attraction work, that are completely unfounded and don't work the way that they're claiming that they work. Because they don't understand natural law. The New Age movement is put there as the last cul-de-sac before the gold mine to cut people off from a real understanding of natural law. I'll look right in the camera, I'll look right in their face and tell them. Cowards. Because you don't want to come out, you don't want to put your name on the line, come out with your real name and say, I stand against all forms of slavery. And I'm going to do everything I can to abolish them. Okay? I'll hide behind a keyboard. I'll give myself a little pseudonym or an acronym name. And I'll attack other researchers on the little aspect that I think they got wrong. Instead of actually telling people what the truth is. In a way that can be readily understood by other people. Okay? They're armchair quarterbacks and they're lazy cowards. Okay? And here's what they're saying. I know all about what's going on in the world. Can't you see how well I'm putting all that knowledge to use? Can't you see what a great job I'm doing? So many people are inactive. Yeah. Order followers are next. The least mature, and yet they're the most responsible. The absolutely most responsible people. Now, how could the least mature be the most responsible people? Well, it's true. These people are the people who have not grown up ever, okay? And yet, they're the most responsible for what's going on in the world. They actually create the police state. These children, who I'm going to put images up on the screen, and if you can just, when I put these images up, I just want you to look into their eyes, okay? And you tell me if these people aren't children. You tell me if you look in their eyes, look into the researchers' eyes I'll put up later, and compare them to these people's eyes. Because they say the eyes are the windows to the soul. You tell me if these aren't psychological children. Okay? Now, there's the archetypal image of the abandoned child. Okay? And here's the abandoned children who are trying to appeal to the approval of mommy and daddy. I want to appeal to the approval of daddy because mommy and daddy didn't pay enough attention to me in real life. So this is my surrogate family. I want to look all the same like a good little boy and girl that does what they're told on command, like a robot. On command like a robot. Look into the eyes of these people. Tell me you don't see psychological children. I'd tell you there's something wrong with you if you don't see it. Okay? Because you have to be completely unconscious not to see that these people have not grown up one iota from childhood. Not one. Yeah, though they're big and bad trying to take other people's rights away on command. Yeah. But here's what they really are, folks. We are the house slaves. We are the house slaves. No lower form of life than a house slave. Okay? These are the house slaves. We'd rather enslave our own species, and ourselves included, rather than grow up, develop real courage, and think for ourselves.
I mean, when you think about it, you're born in the world, and then you start a cycle. It's not a cycle which flows often, most of the time, with a freedom that flows where it wants to flow. It locks into a program. At a certain age, you do certain things. Then you go to school, and nice teachers, and then professors and people in university, they tell you what life is, what facts are, everything, what you are, and all the rest of it, and all the latest scientific knowledge and all this stuff. And then you get married, and you have a family, and you get your kids, and they grow up, and they go through the same system, and you keep getting old, and now you've been battling all your life, competing with everyone else, because you've got to compete. We can't cooperate, we've got to compete. I want that big job, and if I don't get it, if I get it, well, it means he's not getting it, so I've got to stop him getting it so I get it. Oh, competition, fight, greasy pole. And then you start getting a little bit older and your body starts to go, and then you start thinking about what's going to happen when I die. Oh, you know, what is it? I better start saying nice things and join the church or something, because I have to have a bit of insurance, you know, in case. And then you go round and you reach a point where you just hope that there is some God out there that's going to be kind to you, because that you have been told you could go to hell, and give it some of that, you see. I've just described life for vast, vast numbers of people. I mean, can we really not do better than that? Is that all we really are? But what does that serve? What does that sequence I've just described serve? It serves the system that treats us as mere pawns within it, mere cogs within its machine. And therefore we serve that which controls the machine. It's not because that's how it has to be, it's because that's how it's been manipulated to be. I saw these pictures on the internet. There are people running in water to get fit, you know. And of course the water's coming. Got to keep the water from coming up, you know, got to pay the mortgage at the end of the month. Got to keep running, can't stop, bloody hell. You seen the bills? Bloody hell. And it's interesting, they're looking at the telly, because most of us are doing this all the time, aren't we? Exactly that. We call it life. And it's like a bloody software disk, just running through its program. Not just a program for one person, but a program for vast, vast numbers of people. It's like a computer game. As we get through this first section today, we might see it is a computer game. And what's happening is we're being hypnotized all the time through education and media and religion and all this stuff, so that we don't see what this really is, so we don't see how the dots connect, and therefore what we're really experiencing. It's a mind game, like I said right at the start. If you don't control people's minds, you can't control their behavior and their perception. You can't keep them in this state if you don't control their minds. And so we have these prisons of the mind, religion. Here's some rules and regulations. We've called it a religion, but they're rules and regulations. And if you don't keep to them, then you're not in that religion anymore. You're a blasphemer. And here's some politics. If you say that, you're not a socialist. If you say that, you're not a Democrat. You're not a conservative. Rules and regulations. I have to conform to them, or I'm not one of them. Thank you, God. Race. Oh, you're a traitor to your race. Why? I'm just doing the just thing in this situation. Okay, he's from a different race from me, but in the just situation here, he's right. He can't be. He's not the same race as me. He must be wrong. Races played off against each other. Divide and rule. Keep the multitude in constant conflict, and then you can play the violin for them all. And then the big one, the biggest one of all, because they're just expressions of that. Keep them in false self-identity. Keep them in belief. As Mark Twain said, in religion and politics, people's beliefs and convictions are in almost every case gotten at second hand and without examination from authorities who have not themselves examined the questions at issue, but have taken them at second hand from other non-examiners whose opinions about them were not worth a brass farthing. He has just described how the norms are created. Repeating, repetition. Not truth, not fact, not questioning, not investigation, but beliefs that come purely from repetition. Those emissions out of your exhaust are killing the planet because they're causing global warming. No, they're not. No, they're not. I'm not saying they're a good thing. Don't want to breathe them in, although it's been massively overplayed. But do they cause global warming? No. But it's the norm, belief that it does. Why? Repetition. And then with this is to keep us in this state of believing the unbelievable, we go into this state. It's fascinating when I came across this, when I then looked at the world every day from this perspective. It's called cognitive dissonance. And what it is, for people who haven't come across it, when you believe something, and you come across information or an experience which is at odds with the belief, you actually go into an emotional state. It's a disharmonious, vibrational, emotional state, because you can't square your belief with your experience or the information you've come across. Now, this can be a good thing, because if you say, as a result of this unease, I'm going to look again at my belief in the light of that, then you can move forward and you can say, hey, I'm changing my belief here because that's obviously challenging the one I had before. But no, what most people do, this happens so much in religion and politics and stuff, is to get rid of this, they have to explain that away while still retaining this. Like, we're going to war because we want peace. That's how you do it. Cognitive dissonance. Lying to yourself. Making unbelievable lies to yourself to preserve your belief. That's how it continues. If we were honest with ourselves, beliefs would evolve in the light of new information. Another way of putting this was George Orwell's doublethink in his book 1984. Doublethink means the power of holding two contradictory beliefs in one's mind simultaneously and accepting both of them. That's another more extended version of cognitive dissonance, where you can so convince yourself that two opposites are true that you don't actually even have to go into the unease. And of course, these are great cognitive dissonance lines. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. And vast numbers of people on this planet believe those things. By taking our freedoms away, we protect our liberties. That's another good one. But when you start to connect the dots, the bewildered map and maze starts to become clearer. Just press that back. Doctors destroy health. Why? Because doctors are not there. Some individuals may be, but the profession as a whole, the industry, is not there primarily to heal people. It's there to serve the diktats and the agenda of the transnational pharmaceutical cartel and those families that control it. Because cartels are not capitalism, they're cartels. They work as one unit. And you don't want a healthy population, therefore one that can think straight and sharply, if you want to control them. You don't want that at all. It's about wealth, not health, the medical industry. It's about serving big pharma, the pharmaceutical cartel. Lawyers destroy justice. Of course they do. Laws are not there to protect the people overwhelmingly. They're there to impose the will of the system upon the people and keep them in line. So you have to have a legal profession that serves that system primarily, with some honourable exceptions. And therefore justice is not what it's about. It's just about serving the system and arguing black is white in a courtroom. Universities destroy knowledge. If you're a few people, a network of families, and you want to control an entire population, my goodness, do you want people being told things they really need to know through their formative years so they can suss what's going on? No way. You want people to believe a version of reality that suits your agenda, so that's what they get overwhelmingly in education, or what passes for it, with honourable exceptions individually. You know, if you were sitting around a table and you're thinking, how do we get people to see the world the way we want them to see it that suits us? And somebody might say, you know, I don't know whether they'll accept this, but the best thing we can do is take children from the earliest age and have control of their minds from 4 or 5 right through their formative years, right into their teenage years, 5 days a week, maybe more, to tell them what we want them to believe. But that's what we've got. It's called the education system. Education, I think it's about time we had some. Instead, we are given the system's version of reality, filled with all this fake history, fake political science, fake versions of scientific reality. And more, it's in places like America, it's dumb them down, dumb them down. As one great American comedian said, all you need now is virtually is a bloody pencil. You got a pencil? Okay, get in there, it's physics. They don't want educated, sharp people, that's the point. And it happens all over the world. We're educating them. No, you're indoctrinating them. And now we've got young people in the formative years where they should be happy and relaxed and enjoying life. Am I going to pass my exams? Will I get an A? Will I get an A star? Will I get a B? Oh my God, my whole future depends on it. Oh my God. Will I be indoctrinated enough to pass? Do we ever talk in school about being happy? I don't know. We don't do much in England. What about being happy? What about being fulfilled? What about being at peace with self? What about questioning and coming to your own conclusions? Does that ever come? No, got to follow the curriculum. Or if you don't follow the curriculum, you don't pass the exams, and oh, your life's over. Governments destroy freedom. This is a big, big thing for people to understand who are new to any of this. Governments are not there to serve the people. I know it's obvious to people here, but sometimes you have to make it clear. Governments are there to impose the will of the agenda of these families onto the people. And the people that do it are usually men in dark suits, overwhelmingly. Men in dark suits. It's funny, every time someone comes on in authority, they're in a dark suit. I love it. And they come from certain bloodlines. This is George Bush's, apparently. Apparently his line is about to evolve at some point. I don't know when. This was a head scan he had. Now, let's think about this. 300 million people in America. I know they say anyone can become president in America. It's a nonsense, but I know they say that. But clearly, you do not have to be mentally sharp to become president. All you need is the money and the backing of those who decide the presidency. I mean, this is the one George Bush line. I could have picked hundreds. Our enemies are innovative and resourceful, and so are we. They never stop thinking about new ways to harm our country and our people, and neither do we. Now, this man was President of the United States, please God tell me it's not true, for 8 bloody years. And a few people don't control the world, please. And now, hey, Superman's arrived. Superman, the Buddha, Jesus, and any name you want to put to him. Mr. Fake Obama, who has scammed the American collective psyche on a scale that beggars belief, though many, many people are starting to see the truth of that as we see him in action. But despite Mr. Change Obama, and I'll get into him big time in the second half, we have still this agenda moving on by the day to imprison humanity and to destroy free speech and all that stuff. Nothing changes, even though you have on the surface such an apparently vast change from Bush to Obama. The same agenda continues despite that, because it's all image, and really it's all a scam, and it's all a sleight of hand.
I'm just saying it's not exceptional to want to fight corruption and not be a slave. That's a normal instinct. I know that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And so you guys are trying to honor the fact that we're fighting this tyranny. Thank you. But please honor yourself and your own family in the fact that you care about freedom and you're researching what's happening and you're seeking the truth and you want to make a better world. You care that autism is set to be half the population by 2025 in a major MIT report that came out last week. You care that cancer rates are up several thousand % in adults, 10,000% plus in children. You care that they're moving ahead with forced inoculation. You care that Obama's becoming a dictator. You care they're trying to take our guns. You care they're trying to start a war with Russia. You care they're funding radical Islamic groups to destabilize the world. You're involved. I admire you. And now they love it. They can abuse and beat up everybody, and nobody can stop them. Nobody can stop them. They're having their way with America. They want our guns. And if you're not with them, cops and military, then you will declare that you're with the Republic now. And don't tell me that I'm a weirdo because I'm upset about this, and I should only go get upset about my favorite football team winning or losing. Listen, I know what tyranny means. I know the bankers are putting poison in our food and water. I know the bankers have stolen $8.5 trillion. I know we're under War Powers Act. I know they're hurting us. I know they're carrying out New World Order. I know they staged those terror attacks. You know what it's like to gut up to this and go out every day and go past the peer pressure and come out day one and say 9/11 was an inside job and lose most of the radio stations I was on? You know what it's like to go to sleep every night knowing you work for a bunch of psychotic killers and you bastards are probably going to end up killing me one day? You know what it's like knowing you've ruined my life? You know what it's like, you sons of bitches? I'm tired of your crap. You commit evil, you're part of an evil system, and we're standing up against you. And the Republic is going to defeat you in the end. Some of us won't make it personally through this, but a lot of us are. And in the end, you are going to be brought to justice for all the kids you've kidnapped for CPS, all you CPS workers, all you corrupt bureaucrats, all of you that have had your way with innocent children over and over again, who think your evil's invincible. You're not invincible, and God is going to deal with you. And you are cursed to hell. I'm done. I got to get out of here. I'm pissed off now. Robert Wannick, you can make some closing comments. I'll give you the last 2 minutes. We're going to end transmission. Make sure the guy's got your address so I can send you those videos so you can resist tyranny. I salute you.
No longer servants, no longer representatives. It's now authority, official, and you're a civilian. Shut up! I've been in Iraq pushing them around, and now I push you around.
It's crazy. They're not supposed to be calling us civilians, you know, cops.
Hey, I'm going to push you, black guy. If you don't like it, I'm going to taser you, no reason. Oh, you're begging me, huh? That just gets me hot. I like it.
Yeah, that's...
You laughing at me? You laughing at me, civilian?
That right there is,
Maybe I'll put duct tape on your mouth, your eyes, arms, and legs and throw you in the river. Talk about how you committed suicide.
What about the government?
You don't like it, boy?
How about government figures?
We run this country now. Bend him over. Come on, little piggy. Let me hear you squeal. Wee, wee, you little piggy. We run this country now. Yeah, we run it, and it's ours. You gonna learn, boy. We gonna learn you good now. Who runs it? The government's king, and we rule. All I gotta do is go get the job as cop. And now I tell you what you do. Now I tell everybody. You understand me, boy? Huh? Huh?
It is treason to not follow the Fuhrer. The Fuhrer will save Germany, but those opposing him are the reason that the Reich is in trouble. Hail Obama! You do not hail Obama, you will be arrested. Here's the question for everybody out there. Obama said just a few weeks ago, you know, don't worry about tyranny, don't believe people that talk about that. And then you see the tyranny all around you. And we're at the critical juncture, because if we don't recognize the tyranny now, when it's gotten so bad, and if we succumb to it, the sky's the limit. So this is kind of the point where America's finally gotten so drunk on corruption, we may throw up and, you know, begin reversing where we're going.
Unfortunately, you've grown up hearing voices that incessantly warn of government as nothing more than some separate, sinister entity that's at the root of all our problems. Some of these same voices also do their best to gum up the works. They'll warn that tyranny is always lurking just around the corner. You should reject these voices.
All right, that's enough. Next hour, I'm going to play him saying gumming up the works, and then I have Bill Maher saying it's treason to not do what Obama wants. I mean, whoa. It is treason to not follow the Fuhrer. The Fuhrer will save Germany, but those opposing him are the reason that the Reich is in trouble. Hail Obama! You do not hail Obama, you will be arrested. I am literally being animated by the spirit of liberty right now, and I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of the tyranny, and that's why they're afraid. They're so afraid. They want to set the parameters of debate and tell you to sit down and shut up and drink your poison water and take your shots and eat your GMO food and let the little control freaks who are actually vicious devils run our lives. It's not happening. It's over, scum. Got it? It's over, scum. The veneer of civilization is burning off our hull. It's peeling away and showing what we really are, the dynamic, genius creatures that will not be dominated by anybody. Do you understand that? I know you don't like it because you're cowards. The truth is scum and weak filth always joins together to pull down the real men, to pull down the real humans, to pull down the people that know the destiny of their species.
Okay, stop. Even though we're not on the main radio show, let's not get that profane here.
Well, I'm trying.
I want you to say a prayer to government right now. That we exist. Shut up! Slave, we exist to worship black uniforms, to worship government. You exist for them, boy. You understand me? Don't you ever make jokes at me. Don't you ever talk down to me, boy. You know what I'm going to do to you, scum? I rule. You understand me?
You don't rule. You just hide yourself behind that badge. Take that off and let's fight like a man, you evil scum boot.
All right. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. That was completely insane. David in Texas, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Oh, yes, Alex. Just wanted to say I love your show. Wanted to tell you about a little story here in Austin that happened about a week ago, and it didn't make any kind of news or nothing. My wife was coming down Wickersham Lane, and she had a cop behind her.
Good. Dealing with her?
Well, yeah, she called me and said, well, there's a cop behind me, so come outside. And so I came outside, and she parked, and the cop, she actually had a guy in front of her that pulled in the apartment complex, too. Well, this guy parked a little bit down from us, and it was an African-American, and the cop blocked him in once he parked. And after that, he got out of his car, and he's like, had his hands up, and he's like, is there something I can help you with, officer? Because his window was down. And then the officers didn't say nothing to him. And shortly after that, another cop car pulled up.
So what happened? What did they do to him?
Well, all of a sudden, I was out there, and all of a sudden, they just started beating on this guy.
Well, that's what he deserves.
Yeah, exactly. I guess.
So you're a witness. The guy's just there, and they just go, time for you to be a slave. Ooh, yeah, I hate America. Yeah, I'm going to feel powerful.
They didn't say nothing to him. Then,
I'll tell you what, stay there. I want to hear this story on the other side. We're going live right now in main transmission.
Okay.
Let's... Whoever's juggling the phone around, stop it. Okay, Kevin Booth, final segment. We're talking to David in Austin, Texas, Wickershire Lane. He pulls into his apartments. He's out there with his wife, and this black guy gets out of a car. They block him in. He's peacefully standing there. They beat the daylights out of him. Probably didn't pay his cut or something. What did you see? We're at the end of the show. Tell me in an abbreviated fashion what happened.
Well, a third cop showed up, African American, and then they just all were beating on this guy. They didn't ever say a word to him about what they were doing, why they were doing it, nothing.
And then I bet they charged him with assault. He didn't resist. He took a beating, and I bet he's charged with assault.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the guy, they didn't say nothing to him. They just approached him with their clubs and just started nailing him. And this lady came out of her apartment with her video camera, and she got, actually, one of the cops walked up to her and forcefully put her back in her apartment. And then...
Did he steal the camera?
I don't think he did.
You got to go over there and get that video. See, when you see this stuff, you got to get that on YouTube.
Yeah, I've been trying to contact her because...
Look, they're getting ready for martial law. They've told the cops, do whatever you want, act however you want, the nation's your enemy. Yeah, but we're protecting America by getting tough with them, and they don't know about the real terror threat, and they're all spoiled, and they deserve it. And so how long did they beat this guy?
It went on for like 10, 15 minutes. I mean, just beating him. I mean, he was on the ground. He wasn't doing nothing. And they cuffed him. They continued to beat him. They eventually put him in the car. I attempted to walk over there and ask them,
Well, I want to be clear about something. I don't want to really get off into this, but, I mean, I'm not even a tough guy, and I put 3 people in comas. That started fights with me, and thank God there were always witnesses. A couple times I went to jail, because when somebody's in a coma, they take you to jail. But I wasn't trying to,
crack somebody's head open and mess their brain up. But I mean, they kill people all the time with this, and I'm tired of it.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, this guy's definitely. I mean, the reason they probably got a second cop there was this guy's huge. I mean, easily this guy could probably have taken that one cop.
Well, there's something about cops when they see a big black guy, they just flip. It's like a little dog with a bear, and the little dog will always attack the bear. It's like it gets. I actually do that. When a big guy's in front of me, I get charged up and want to open a can up if they're attacking me. But it's one thing to just flip out and want to go out and beat up people. I mean, so this just went on and on.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And like I said, after everything had kind of settled down, I attempted to ask the officer what had happened just because I felt like it's my neighborhood.
He said, "Shut up, slave!"
And he said I had no business being down there. I had no right to know, and I need to get back in my apartment or go wherever I need to be and get away from there. And I mean, the only reason I started up a big fuss, I had my kids there, and I'm not about to get whooped in front of my kids.
Oh, you kidding? They'll kill you these days. And by the way, Austin cops aren't even the worst, but they kill people every few weeks over there. It's kind of like the hunting ground. Well, you ought to write that. We ought to write that up and post it on Craigslist. Everybody can see it. And
definitely. I'm going to actually have the guy's girlfriend call you as soon as she gets the understanding of the charges and stuff. I've been talking to her, and I told her that she needs to get it.
Does she have any idea why they did this, or was it just like a pleasure thing?
No, like right now, as far as trying to get any information on what's going on and how to get them out and all that, she can't get any information. You know, she's trying to get a lawyer, and I don't know what's going on with their lawyer.
This country's so gone. Okay, hey, thank you. Send me info. Kevin, Kevin, I could take hundreds of calls, and then there's hundreds of videos every day on YouTube. I mean, where people are tied down being tasered, and the cops are going, I mean, I don't understand how we got all these psychos running things. You're about to pass bills to regulate and tax and do home inspections and tax all carbon. It is now illegal to take photos of buildings in D.C., but there's no law, but they have weapons. And it's their country, and they're going to ship the coke and heroin in, and your kids are going to use it and go to their own prisons. And they're going to make your kids take Ritalin and Prozac. And they're going to take your guns, and they're going to hurt you. And they got a lot of stupid goons who like to push people around and aren't real warriors that like to pick on innocent people. And they enjoy just destroying the republic. Just filth. Yes, there it is. There it is. Washington Post. Secret buildings you may not photograph. There's the Washington Post right there. Secret buildings you may not photograph. DARPA. I am sick of you, criminal filth, trying to domesticate us and intimidate us and set the precedent that we're your slaves so your offshore banker masters can suck us dry. Stop being traitors. Stop destroying the United States. Stop claiming you're patriots. I just see stuff like this and it makes me mad. And I'm already wound up over the Federal Reserve dictatorship and saying Congress has no authority over the coining and issuance of currency and money. I go to events and they have the Army watching us, and it's now in the news. The Army follows us around when we go protest the Federal Reserve and Ron Paul. You're criminals. You're in the wrong. You're bad. Got it? Get it through your head. But see, they hire these little nobody scumbags and people used to torturing people and spying on people in Iraq, and they're bringing them all back here to do it to us. You are trash. You are scum. You're worse than Stalin. You're as bad as Hitler. You're as bad as Lenin. You're trash. You're filth. You're Maoist crap. You're pieces of un-American trash. Get the American flags off your car. Stop putting Browning stickers, deer hunting stickers on your car and swagging around. You're an American. I know who you people are. You're a bunch of trash on power trips. And I swear we're going to bring you to justice when we take this country back. We got to make sure you all get in trouble for what you've done, because you'll just come right back like cancer. God, they go on ABC News and brag how they listen to you have sex with your wife and sit around laughing. The NSA guys literally just sit there in their offices masturbating. I mean, that's just a bunch of scumbags masturbating is what the NSA is. And covering up. Local cops are about to bust a government child kidnapping ring. NSA comes in to stop. Somebody catches government shipping drugs in, NSA finds out, comes in and blocks the investigation. It's all to make sure their crimes continue, and spying on Congress illegally and running all their scams, and MI6 and MI5 spies on the British Parliament. You're criminals. We're going to get you. You're criminals. And a lot of you are just compartmentalized and just grab the data and pass it up to the sicko eggheads above you. Okay, now I'm getting mad. Just stop being in denial about what. And then the company that's made the vaccine is Baxter, caught putting weaponized bird flu in the vaccines. Bloomberg News, but you don't care. And people will take it, and they'll die, and you'll stick your kids in the ground, and you'll go, proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm thumb scanned, and everything gets listened to, and the police wear black uniforms, and I get home inspections for my carbon tax, and I gladly turn my guns in, 'cause I'm proud to be a slave of the bakers. God bless the slaves and the masters. The idiot type redneck people they've got to serve the New World Order kind of as the enforcer. It's like guerrillas, like policy. I mean, you know, I'm kind of ashamed I'm a little bit related to them. And they got a bunch of other scum working for them. I've seen you. You're a bunch of trash. Oh, I hate you. Oh, liberty, folks. I'm really threatened by all this. So I get a little fired up. But the spirit of liberty is infectious, is it not?
To rise to the top. And you're screening them step by step to make sure that their conscience, what we call conscience, is slowly and slowly compromised. Or that even their physical life is compromised. There's ways that this is done. We'll look at that a little bit later on. In the Architects in Control, we went again into a definition of psychopathy in order to understand all of this. And look at it a little bit different than the rest of the world's psychologists. Because there's many definitions of this. And I was very concerned that in all the definitions that do exist of psychopathy, very little has to do with anything to do with historical trauma. This part has been left out by philosophers and psychologists alike. But I think it's very, very important. And it ties into this. Now, if we look at some of the symbolism, you'll see that great efforts have been put into designing cities and, state buildings, colonial buildings. Here's Buckingham Palace seen from the air. And there you can very clear, it's upside down, but you can clearly see the pyramidical aspect there. Not that pyramids, their shape is any negative, any more than a triangle is negative. It's just that this means something. It symbolizes the hierarchy. Here's Washington, D.C., you see. Again, it's Buckingham Palace from the air. A total Egyptian pyramid concept. Here's Hampton Court, which is not far away. Another elite estate. Deliberately designed on that motif. Here's Canberra. The same idea. You're finding this cropping up a lot. Here's the ancient, not the ancient, but during Nazi Germany, this was was meant to be a supposed Nazi headquarters, designed specifically by Himmler to be a pagan shrine, and also a settlement for elite Nazis, Wewelsburg Castle in Germany. The same motif, the same pyramidical idea. Or it can be in a different form, not quite pyramidical, but for instance like here, the headquarters of the EC, you see. Can be this sort of Tower of Babel effect. But even obelisks, all sorts of statues. And the idea is that hierarchy, basically, I've always said it's a definition of psychopathy. Because it's almost it's a hallmark of psychopathy. Those people who see the world in hierarchical terms are working from a certain level of dementia. It's not to say that hierarchies don't exist. But when your ideological model of the world is hierarchical, then we enter into lots of problems. And so when we decode the symbolism, we find that there's an awful lot of emphasis on this. The idea that there was some disorder in the past. A new world order implies an old world disorder. Even to talk about order, right, talks about imposing something on something that's disorganized or disorderly. And Masons use even the symbol of the beehive. You'll have symbols of the tiara, of the mitre that the popes wear. This symbol of hierarchy can be found in many, many levels, symbolically. Joel Bacan says that democracy is necessarily hierarchical. It requires that the people, through the government they elect, have sovereignty over corporations, not equality with them. Now he's talking about in the corporate milieu. If corporations and governments are indeed partners, we should be worried about the state of our democracy, for it means that government has effectively abdicated its sovereignty over the corporation. And corporations, in his work, he goes in to show that they are psychopathic. If you read his book, The Corporation, he's talking about corporations being psychopathic. One of the commenters on this kind of a certain psychopathy was Nikolai Machiavelli, and he has to say that a prince, and this is somebody aspiring for political power, ought to have no other aim or thought, nor select anything else for his study than war and its rules and discipline. For this is the sole art that belongs to him who rules, and it is of such force that it not only upholds those who are born princes, but it often enables men to rise from private station to that rank. So he's encouraging the elites to think in psychopathic ways. He goes on to say that from this arises the question whether it is better to be loved rather than feared. For feared or feared rather than loved. It might perhaps be answered that we should wish to be both. But since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved. There's your psychopathy. There's your conscious, deliberate decision-making and advice. Sorcery, it's specifically then, I paraphrase Carlos Castaneda's Don Juan, who says, as a sorcerer, you are aware that you have absolutely no control over or of anything, but you have to act as if you do. Now what that really means, interpreted, is mean that you have no control over yourself, which is the point I've been making. The psychopath has no control over their own selfhood. Their own inner republic is in a state of total chaos. And therefore now they need these very sort of stabilizers in their own life, and then you just continue by imposing those on the world outside you. The same point is brought up by Thomas Hobbes, the philosopher. In the 16th century, he said that the state of peace among men living side by side is not a natural state. The natural state is one of war. And there's whole schools of philosophers who believe that, and many schools of politicians. And of course it's an ancient ideology. The whole idea of crushing and subduing nature is born out of this idea that man in his own brain imagines himself the highest of the species and all of this nonsense. We also have it come about, this whole phallic idea, the ethiophalic hierarchical idea also comes about in patriarchism and the whole idea of phallocracy, the patriarch. Another manifestation is the idea that you rise yourself by pushing others down, right? You can't really rise yourself morally, spiritually, intellectually. So you remain exactly where you are and make sure that everyone beneath you is artificially pushed lower. This is how the tyrant works. And then they have this aura of superiority. Whereas the truly spiritual, superior man develops on his own, regardless of what others are doing. This is impossible to these psychic invalids. Demeaning nature, demeaning femininity, all of this is part of it. The treatment of animals and so on. Again, it wouldn't be a problem. Only thing is that they want their infection to spread. They're not just comfortable, as we see from these quotes, being that way themselves. They must make the whole world as wretched and as disorderly as they are themselves within their minds. This must never be forgotten for an instant. Now, you can't come out and tell people that that's what you're going to do, so you come out as the wolf in sheep's clothing to give them all these promises. First, you create the problems, like we've heard, right? Create the chaos, create the mayhem, and then bring in the idea of artificial order and artificial control. And you will buy into it if you have the same infection within. So it's all about psychic and psychological immunity. Nothing to do too much with politics, even though you can't rule out political action out altogether. And here is the perfect statement that summarizes what we've been talking about. This idea that the psychopath craves this artificially imposed order. As George Bush said, George Herbert Walker Bush, he said, out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order, can emerge. A new era, freer from the threat of terror, stronger in the pursuit of justice, and more secure. Today, a new world is struggling to be born, a world quite different from the one we've known, a world where the rule of law supplants the rule of the jungle. When you decode this psychologically, it's unbelievable what kind of specimen is revealed underneath it. If you just think about it as being something that's happening in an external theater of the world, then you don't have the understanding at all. Of course, these people are the self-deceived. They're the ones running around literally now believing that the order they have can be imposed on all the rest of us. But one must ask a simple question. How can anyone who's in a state of inner chaos ever imagine that they're going to realize or attain social harmony and justice, you see. It's just not possible. In fact, recall the quote by Goethe, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who said that he is happy as well as great, who needs neither to obey nor command in order to be something. Now, Ayn Rand, the philosopher, the Russian philosopher, said that still another kind of soul is revealed by the man who takes pleasure, not in achievement, but in destruction. What? Pleasure in destruction? Well, there you have it. The sadism, the narcissistic pleasure, the psychopathy. Not in achievement, but in destruction, whose action is aimed not at attaining efficacy, but at ruling those who have attained it. The soul of a man so abjectly lacking in self-value and so overwhelmed by terror of existence that his sole form of self-fulfillment is to unleash his resentment and hatred against those who do not share his state. Those who are able to live as if by destroying the confident, the strong and the healthy, he could convert impotence into efficacy. Erich Fromm, the psychologist, in his fantastic work Anatomy of Human Destructiveness, says that the sadistic person is sadistic because he is suffering from impotence of the heart, from the incapacity to love the other, to make him respond, to make oneself a loved person. He compensates for that impotence with the passion to have power over others. Since self-assertive aggression enhances the person's capacity for achieving his aims, its possession greatly diminishes the need for sadistic control. So it's about power, control, or love and compassion. Fromm goes on to say, the intensely destructive person will show a front of kindliness, courtesy, love of family, of children, of animals. He will speak of his ideals and his good intentions. But not only this, there is hardly a man who is utterly devoid of any kindness or any good intention. If he were, he would be on the verge of insanity. Hence, as long as one believes that the evil man wears horns, one will never discover an evil man. It sounds very simple on paper, but we vote them in time and time again. Here it is in black and white. Prince Philip is quoted in the media as saying, in the event I am reborn, I would like to return as a deadly virus in order to contribute something to solve overpopulation. I mean, I'm not making this up. Albert Speer, the Nazi official very close to Hitler, he was one of the architects, physically I mean, he was an expert in architecture. Speer said that Hitler lacked all the more gentle virtues of man. Tenderness, love, poetry were alien to his nature. On the surface he showed courtesy, charm, tranquility, correctness, amiability, self-control. This outer skin obviously had the function to cover up the really dominant traits with a complete, although thin, layer. So, knowing this, when you diagnose these people like this, come very cognizant of discovering what is the psychopath. And then you start to be able to see it more clearly. It doesn't matter who it is, royalty, technocrats, scientists, politicians, whatever. You start to understand what they're doing. And it becomes axiomatic then, doesn't it? Not to vote for them, not to put them in power, because they obviously, by being in the condition that they are, can never bring about social justice. This is an important step in political evolution. I would go so far as to say, you see, that the very presence of these people has actually held civilization back. It's worse than not going forward. They are the agents of regression. Here we have Barbara Bush saying, why should we hear about body bags and deaths? It's not relevant. So why should I waste my beautiful mind on something like that? The same sentiments was by Madeleine Albright, Colin Powell, Bush, Cheney, all the rest of them. They've all said exactly the same thing. What they're really saying underneath that is that they don't really care because they're the ones doing it. They love it. They enjoy it. This is fantastic to them. And we're wondering about serial killers on the loose? Hiding under the bed because of some other nonsense? Another one that the media do, you see, is they play on this dichotomy that we have, the ambivalence that we have is constantly used. They know how to work on our ambivalence. Like Ayn Rand was pointing out, if we lose the ability to tell these people like Fromm was pointing out. If we lose it, then we're weakening our judgment. We forget what the differences are between right and wrong and wisdom and folly. Right? Our judgment becomes erased, and therefore we become more susceptible to these people. We can't even really decide anymore whether they're good or evil. We keep excusing their misdemeanors and infractions because we ourselves have lost our own morality. Now we move into the deep, dark, sinister underworld to see how that factors in. And before we start, I'd like to make you familiar with a couple of books. There's so many sources, research sources that you can look into. One of the most important for what we're going to talk about today is actually The Covert War Against Rock by Alex Constantine. He's written other books and he has a website, so definitely check out the works of Alex Constantine. Certainly Transformation of America by Kathy O'Brien. The Franklin Cover-Up by Senator John DeCamp. Very, very important. The work of my colleague Ted Gunderson from the FBI, ex-FBI agent in Los Angeles, who's very up to speed on the stuff we're going to be discussing today.
Now, one thing that I'm getting kind of sick and fucking tired of is euphemisms we use to replace the word slavery. It's not fucking taxation, it's slavery. It's not feudalism, it's slavery. It's not subjugation, it's slavery. It's not serfdom, it's slavery. It's not authority, fucking authority, it's slavery. If you believe in authority, you are under mind control, because you believe that some people are masters who have the right to issue orders, and some others are slaves who have the moral obligation to obey the orders of the masters. Now that's insane, but that's what authority is, that's what government is. Now, if you are a liberal, if you are a Democrat, if you are a right-winger, if you are a conservative, if you are a constitutionalist, if you are a minarchist, if you, whatever the fuck you are, if you believe that the political system can provide solutions to social problems, you are a supporter of slavery. You understand that? Please understand that. Whatever you are, if you are believing in the Constitution, which is the belief in a small government, if you believe in the right winger, if you believe in liberalism, if you believe in the political system, if you believe that the political system can provide solutions for social problems, you are insane, you are under mind control, you believe in the concept of authority, and you are a supporter of slavery. There is no other way to put that. You are not a conservative, you are a supporter of slavery. You are not a liberal, you are a supporter of slavery. You are not a minarchist, you are not a constitutionalist, you are a supporter of slavery. The only way not to be a supporter of slavery is to be an anarchist. If you believe in the political system in any way, if you vote, if you march, whatever the fuck you do for the political system, you are a supporter of slavery. Get it in your fucking head. You cannot get around that. You cannot dismiss it by calling it, I'm a liberal. I'm not a supporter of slavery by believing in the political system. I'm not a supporter of slavery. I'm a liberal. I'm a Democrat. I'm a right-winger. I'm that. I'm this. I'm not a supporter of slavery by any means. I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in small government. Basically, what constitutionalists are is like being in a 7-day, 20 hours a day work plantation, slave plantation, and say, oh my God, can you see the other plantation across the road? The slaves there are forced to work only 2 days a week. Oh my God, I want to go there. That's a constitution. That's a republic. I want to go there where the slaves work only 2 days a week. Oh my God, that's what a minarchist is. They are supporters of constrained slavery. but they are still supporters of slavery. The only way not to be a supporter of slavery is being an anarchist. There's no other fucking way. No matter how you delude your own self or you kid yourself, you're a supporter of fucking slavery. So, if you support the political system, you are a supporter of slavery. Now let's move on. It's not called rule of law. It's slavery. Now, it's not politics, it's slavery. It's not the state or the government, it's slavery. It's a system of slavery. It's not bureaucracy, it's slavery. It's not the administration, it's slavery. It's not bureaucracy, it's slavery. It's not administration, it's slavery. It's not socialism, it's not communism. It's not Bolshevism, it's not collectivism, it's not Fabianism, it's not Leninism, it's not Maoism, it's not Marxism. It's a supporter of slavery. If you believe in a concept of authority, no matter how you are called, you are a supporter of slavery. I don't give a shit what you think. It's not fucking fascism. It's not absolutism. It's not authoritarianism. It's not autocracy. It's not despotism. It's not Nazism. It's not racism. It's not totalitarianism. It's not one-party system government or two-party system government. It's not apartheid. It's a supporter of fucking slavery. It's slavery. Get it in your fucking heads. There's no way around that. I don't give a shit what you think. It's the truth. If you believe in the concept of authority, you are a supporter of slavery, no matter what it is. It's not fucking kinship, it's not aristocracy, it's not nobility, it's not rank, like they call it in the military, it's not queenship, like fucking England. It's slavery ruled by one. When you have a king, you are under slavery ruled by one. Now, when you have a government, the power, instead of being on the king, it's diluted a little bit. So it's slavery ruled by few. When you have a government, you are under slavery ruled by few. And it's not plutocracy and it's not oligarchy or whatever the fuck you want to call it to avoid using the word slavery. It's slavery ruled by few. And religion is slavery and mind control. Which slavery is a form of mind control. Now, it's not a fucking belief, it's mind control and slavery. It's not the banking system, it's slavery. It's not the government coercion or intimidation or IRS, it's slavery. You can't avoid using the word slavery, you have to use the right definitions. That's how you create change in the first place. You don't cover things up with fucking euphemisms. It's like putting makeup on a corpse and pretend it's alive. That's what you do by using euphemisms. It doesn't change anything. This system is already dead. Slavery is dead. It never existed. But by putting makeup on a dead corpse, you make it exist. You manifest it in reality by believing that shit. Now I want to end by saying that the old world order was slavery ruled by a king or a queen, the old world order. Or like I defined it earlier, the old world psychopathic chaos control system. The old world, not order, which is not, it's the old world psychopathic chaos control system. And now they are trying to create the new world order or the new world psychopathic chaos control system, which is slavery ruled by a few, where the power is diluted to a government or a priest class or whatever. But it's slavery. Stop using euphemisms for fucking slavery. I don't give a shit if you wanna dress up a corpse. Go fuck yourself. It's slavery. Fuck you.